Okay. And you are on, Counselor.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the Buckman Direct Diversion Board. So Karen, will you please call the roll?
Sure. Counselor Vigil-Koppler.
Here?
Commissioner Hanson.
Present.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Here.
Mr. Helms.
Here.
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes, I'm here.
And Mr. Egelhoff.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. Staff have any changes to the agenda?
Chair, we do have one change that staff would like to request. And that is that item 8C, request for approval of removal of a vacant and unfunded assistant water resources coordinator position from the BDD org chart. That needs a little bit further consideration at the city water division. And the request has been made to pull this item and possibly bring it back in the future.
Okay, so you want to, you're saying we need to remove item 8C.
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other changes?
And
what-
Madam Chair, under 7A, the date of the FISAC meeting should be December 2 and not December 1.
Okay.
That's 7A.
Madam Chair, may I actually ask for clarification?
Yes.
Thank you. So 8C is being removed from the agenda altogether, not just removed from consent?
That the way,
Wasn't
yes,
on
would be
consent.
removed from the agenda altogether. if
Okay,
we
thank
approve
you.
the agenda. Okay,
Got
so
it.
7A, the correction is to change December 1 to December 2nd.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other changes? All right, what are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve as amended.
Second,
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Romero Worth, seconded by Commissioner Anna Hamilton. Okay, Karen, will you please call for the voice vote?
Sure. Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Mr. Helms.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
yes.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yes.
And Chair Vigil-Koppler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the consent agenda. So we have item 8C already removed. So, done away with, not removed. So what are the wishes of the board?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Hanson and seconded by, who seconded?
Mr. Helms.
Helms, yes. Okay, thank you. Karen, will you please call for the voice vote?
Yes. Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Mr. Helms.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yes.
And Chair Vigil-Koppler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item is item 5, approval of the minutes from the November 5th Buckman Direct Diversion Board. And I would like to start off by reading into the minutes of November 5th, stating for the record that the only matter discussed during executive session at our last board meeting on November 5th was the matter as stated in the motion to go into executive session and that no action was taken. So I'd like to read that into the minutes. And what's the pleasure of the board?
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
I-
Hamilton.
move to approve the minutes without addition.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hamilton, seconded by Commissioner Hanson to approve the minutes of November 5th. Karen, will you please call for the voice vote?
Counselor Romero Worth.
Yes.
Mr. Helms.
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson.
Yes.
and Chair Vihel Coppler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item is item 6, matters from the public. I believe we have one comment from the public, and I'd like to ask Jamie Ray Diaz to please read the public comment into the record. As I understand, the maker of the public comment agreed that it should be read into the record.
Yes, so this was by Joni Ahrens, and public comment reads as follows. Concerned Citizens for Nuclear Safety, CCNS, submits the following comment and a question to the Buckman Direct Diversion Board for today's meeting. 1. At last month's meeting on November 5th, 2020, there was a discussion about a 1-year extension of the 2018 BDD Board Lanel MOU, which expired on December 1st, 2020. This term is not listed on today's agenda. CCNS question, what is the status of the MOU? 2. CCNS supports the approval of Amendment Number 2 to the Professional Services Agreement with Glorieta Geoscience, Inc. for technical support services to the board. Thank you for this opportunity to provide public comments.
Okay, thank you. If I guess it's Joni. Joni Ahrens is listening. This is a public comment only, but we may have opportunity to say a thing or two about this later in the agenda. Thank you, Jamie Ray. Next item is item 7A, report on December 2nd Fiscal Services Audit Committee by Mackie Romero.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Fiscal Service and Audit Committee was held on Wednesday, December 2nd. In attendance was myself, BDD Financial Manager, Rick Carpenter, BDD Facilities Manager, County Commissioner Hamilton, and John Dupuis from Las Campanas, Tom Eaglehoff, and James Lightfoot. We discussed the report on the first quarter financial position, and then we discussed consent agendas, items 8A, 8B, and 8C, and there were no major concerns. I also provided an update on the BDD audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. And the update is that unfortunately BDD's audit will be late. A letter was submitted to the state auditor. We are tied with the city's audit. That report won't be submitted until March 31st. That update was also provided, and we will provide updates every month until the report is officially issued to the state auditor. That's the end of my report.
Thank you, Mackie. Does the board or anyone, staff people, have any comment? Questions for Mackie? Commissioner Hanson first, Commissioner Hamilton second.
I just want to express my disappointment in the fact that the audit will be late again. I don't really understand. I thought that the city had been given instructions of how to make it possible so that the cash receipts could be done earlier. So I just have to express my disappointment with that. And I hope the city can start getting their fiscal house in order.
Thank you. Commissioner Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In that regard, I wanted to say that first, I fully understand that Mackie and has done everything possible from the BDD side to make the audit as responsive as possible. What I'd like to ask, last year when the audit was late, we had some discussion about potential remedial actions, and I'd like them to be rediscussed and re-pursued this year. I'm not, to the extent that we might want to ask why they weren't implemented the way they were discussed. I only want to ask for that if it helps figure out how we can do it this year. I'm not interested in blame, but I really feel like this can and should be and truly needs to be remediated. So if we can at some point have a discussion with what we can implement between the city and BDD so that we can get the information in a timely manner and have timely audits, I would really appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Carpenter, have you had any discussions with anyone at the city finance to shed any light on this?
I have not. Mackie may have.
Okay.
I don't know that the finance department's going to be all that responsive to me. They speak in terms that Mackie understands, but I don't know if she's reached out to them or not.
Ms. Romero?
So Madam Chair, members of the board, I have had discussions with finance, and Commissioner Hamilton is correct. Finance was trying to see if there was a way to separate cash, because that's one of the major components. But I know it's more difficult than originally was discussed. And so I will touch base again with finance and see what those difficulties are, and if that means changes to maybe some of the agreements, then I can at least bring that forward so the board is aware of what those steps would involve or intake in separating BDD's cash from the city. That would hopefully help facilitate the audit.
Okay. Commissioner Hamilton?
That's a great response, and I would appreciate it. And Madam Chair, to the extent that it might help to have you as chair, maybe after Mackie's, first approach, or when she has some feedback, to the extent that it might benefit BDD to have the chair get involved in this. I'm just throwing that out as a thought.
Okay, thank you. I will. I will say that the entrance conference with the auditors was not very comfortable to learn that we were going to be late again, and they're concerned, and I know I'm concerned. I know you all are concerned. So we will do whatever we can to make our concerns known and see if there's any possible solution to this. It's obviously not going to be impacting this year's audit, but in the future, it could maybe affect a better position to be in for the next year's audit. So thank you for that. Okay. So any other questions for Mackie Romero? All right. Thank you, Mackie. Next item is 7B, monthly update on the BDD operations. Randy Segru.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the month of November and to date, the BDD operators are continuing to maintain a safe and healthy work environment. I'm pleased with that. For the month of November, our diversions averaged about 3.96 million gallons per day. Our deliveries through our booster stations averaged about 3.67 million gallons per day. Our delivery to Las Campanas has now come to zero as irrigation is stopped for the year. Our on-site treated and non-treated water is about 0.3 million gallons per day. We're providing 57% of the water supply to the city and county. That's increasing a bit in December. There is a regional demand drought summary update on page 2. As you can see on our report, our year-to-date diversions are depicted on the graph now about at average for November. Just as a note, we're just above 2 billion gallons of water produced at BDD for the year, which was similar to the previous year, a bit higher. If the daily demand for the month of November was about 6.4 MGD. So I stand for questions.
All right, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Randy? Great. I don't see none. Thank you, Randy. Always
Thank you.
very informative. Okay, next item is 7C, report from the facilities manager, Rick Carpenter.
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. I have a few items. I think maybe I should start with the concurrence of Board General Counsel. If I could ask Mr. Harwood, I think he has some answers to some of the pretty good questions that Joni Ahrens asked in her email to the board. And if it pleases the chair, I'd like to invite Mr. Harwood to respond to that.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just two quick sentences. The letter extension to the MOU that was voted on by this board in November has been executed. As you know, Chair, you got an electronic signature from me, or a request for an electronic signature from me, and then the site office has similarly executed that. So we do have that extension, and that's just a quick update following on the board's action from the last meeting. And the second question from Ms. Ahrens, we'll have a full report at the January board meeting regarding the status of our MOU negotiations. Not much has happened with Mr. Underwood's departure from the scene, but we hope to have some additional progress to report out at the January meeting if that suits the desire of you, the chair, and the board generally.
yes, sure.
Very good. That completes my updates that also just happened to fit into the public comment.
Thank you. Mr. Carpenter, you want to proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next update I would like to share with the board. Mackie and I have been working on the budget. We have been asked to comply with, I think, is a pretty aggressive schedule, but we are doing pretty well. We've got a preliminary draft that is pretty tight, and we ran that by the city water division director just yesterday. Couple of little things that we have to tighten up. There were no issues that we can't deal with. I think the budget's coming along really well. We're early in the year, but we've got a pretty solid budget. It's going to be very thin, just like last year, but we are on track and complying with the schedule that's been presented to us. So I just wanted the board to know that that is proceeding as it should be.
Okay.
I have two other items.
Before you proceed, I see a hand from Commissioner Hamilton.
Just quickly, could you give us a little verbal report on what the budget schedule is for the new fiscal budget?
It's pretty aggressive. We were directed, Mackie and I were directed to have a draft on the desk of the water division director as of yesterday at 1 p.m. We did that. I understand that we have to get that tightened up and presentable by the end of the week. That would be tomorrow. Shannon Jones, the public utilities director, has to have his preliminary budget into, I guess, the finance department sometime next week. I'm not sure which day, but it's pretty aggressive, and we'll go from there. We have in our organic documents our own schedule on how to have the board approve a draft budget and then make the recommendation to the city and the county. We'll be able to stick with that unless there's something that I don't anticipate. So we're on schedule.
Well, being on schedule is very nice, but clearly what you turn into the city is a first cut, and it's recognized that the BDD budget comes to the BDD board for approval and discussion. And so in the process of revising the budget, I think if you're presenting it to the city, it should be presented to the board.
I don't have a problem unless Mackie or Nancy has a problem presenting a preliminary budget. I think that would be helpful to perhaps even bring a preliminary draft to the board at the next board meeting. Sooner rather than later is always good.
So, Madam Chair, if I can
Sure.
bring in, the city's deadline is aggressive. Once we were done with that, it was our intention to then meet with both the county and Las Campanas, as they are partners and part of this budget. And so I don't know if that's the level of discussion you were looking for, Commissioner Hamilton, or if you were looking for a higher level, but those meetings are still planned and intended to happen. We were just trying to meet the city's deadline, but our intention is to meet with the remainder of the partners to go over the budget and the water projections and the numbers.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that's a great idea. This is obviously earlier than you guys normally think that you need to present to the board for approval of the BDD budget. What does come to mind, though, is that in the process of developing the draft budget, if the board sees anything that they want some discussion on, the city has maybe good reason for wanting it early. That's great. They want to see where they're going to stand in the coming year and be able to anticipate things, but it doesn't leave room for they're going ahead with the budget and then the BDD board or the county, and you meet with the county and Las Campanas, and that will address some of it. But if there are things that come up, then that would have to go back to the city and to get information and some feedback early and have the board as part of the process makes sense to me in terms of not having problems later.
I have a question, Maggie. I mean, we would still go through budget hearings, right? And this is just kind of an accelerated prep time. We're preparing for meeting the deadline of submitting an operational budget by the DFA timeframe, right? Was that sometime in May?
So I know last year's budget was unique in typically we don't go to budget hearings, or at least not BDD itself. The budget hearing remains within the water division and their budget, but I know last year was a unique situation and BDD, did attend the budget hearings. I don't know if that will be the case again this year, but trying to stay in line with the original schedule was, meeting with the partners, bringing the budget to the board with all the partners, concurrence, and then getting the board to then recommend that to both the city and the county, and then they include that in their budgets. But, like Rick said, if we need to bring a preliminary draft so that the board has an opportunity to have some discussion, I think we can still do that.
Okay, well, I realize that discussion, whether we get into budget hearings or not is something we still need to discuss. I think the reason for that was to begin to educate that BDD is a separate entity. And to the extent the board still wants to communicate in that fashion, it may or may not be something you all want to do. But my point is the overall budgets have to be done and presented. Is it the May deadline to DFA?
I believe so when it comes to the city and then the county.
Okay. All right. So I think there's still time. If we have to, flex our budget muscle, then we have some time to do it. But earlier is always sooner than later, better than later. Okay. Thank you. Rick, do you want to continue?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. I have two more items to update the board on. They're both going to be difficult for everyone. I do it with a heavy heart, but I need to let the board know that Mackie Romero has decided to take a position elsewhere with the state. It's a great career opportunity for her and an ability to apply the breadth and depth of her skills, more so than at the BDD, and to be able to keep her options open as she moves through her career, which I'm sure will be illustrious. But she has decided to take that position. She'll be leaving us on December the 11th. We are working to see what we can do about a smooth transition. and to fill the gaps until we can make a new hire. It will be difficult to find someone with the skill set that this job description requires. It always has been. That'll be a challenge, but I want the board to know that I'm working on that already. And one thing we probably can't replace, or we hope to, but it will be difficult, and that is filling the position's one thing, filling the person, which is Mackie Romero, will be also very difficult. She's always been so helpful and so talented and a delight to work with, and everybody respects her and relies on her. And so we are saddened that she will be moving on, but we wish her well. And I want to say in this public meeting, congratulations, and we wish you well. Mackie, do you have anything to add?
Thank you, Rick. I just want everyone to know it's been a pleasure. I've loved my 7 years here at BDD. I love the staff. I love the work. The board, the partners, everybody's been very supportive in my career. And I am excited about this new opportunity and saddened at the same time. But I do want to thank everyone, and thank you everyone for all your kind words and support and wishes. And so just thank you.
Commissioner Hansen.
Mackie, this is very sad news to hear, but also congratulations. And I am so happy for you moving up the ladder, so to speak. That's a great opportunity, and I'm so proud and happy for you. But we are going to miss you desperately. I know that, and I just want to express that from my heart, that we will really miss you. There is no doubt about it. So thank you for all your service to the BDD and to all of us on the board. Gratitude for all that you've done. Thank you.
Commissioner Hamilton.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. What you've done for BDD can't be expressed any better than what Rick said, but it is so amazing what a central figure you are between the your expertise and the institutional knowledge, and how you use that to make BDD successful. And so it will be a challenge to replace that, but it's no surprise for you to get recruited to bigger and better things, and wish you just it is no surprise at all, well-deserved, and wish you just so much luck in that. So if you hear the screams in the distance sometime late after December 11th, you'll know what's going on. Congratulations, and thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? So Mackie, I was just like shocked to hear this, and I'm saddened for the BDD board and for all the people that work with you that I know are going to be very, very sad. But at the same time, I'm just so I'm excited for you, for the career path that you're taking. I think there's no doubt one day you could be cabinet secretary for Department of Finance and Administration, and you've got some time to climb that ladder, but I have no doubt that someone of your caliber and what you've been able to do for this board and how you've kept it all together, and your understanding, most of all, of the intricacies of finance and governing and such, that there's no doubt that you could certainly end up in high places. So just remember all of us when you're there. We were nice to you. And just best of luck in your career. And I know BDD is going to miss you, and I hope you have a little lifeline for Rick Carpenter along the way, because you know, there's some things that are going to need some questions probably that will come up for you. And I hope you're open to answering those questions in the future and without jeopardizing anything that you have going on. But best of luck to you. And, you know, just remember us fondly. And I think you will, because we will remember you fondly. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, Counselor Ives.
Sorry, I just wanted to add that Mackie, obviously our interactions have all been associated over the years with the BDD, and having been a member of this board for a number of years, and having served on many, many boards over the course of many years, having especially finance staff who are informed, who have the best interest of the organization at the forefront of the work they do, and are able to provide confidence to those who serve on the board that they are getting accurate and correct and full information on financial matters, makes all the difference, not only to the operation of the board, but also the job that it's able to do. So I would say I give you my highest compliments in that regard, because I have over the years built up a deep and abiding trust in what comes out of your mouth when you are presenting to this board. So I would thank you for that. And in closing, I would only say that I hope you're coming over to the Department of Cultural Affairs.
Thank you.
Okay. So thanks, Mackie, again.
Thank you.
Mr. Carpenter, do you have any more? Good
Yes,
news?
Madam
Bad news?
Chair, and members of the board, I'm afraid I do. With an equally heavy heart, I need to announce to the board that Mr. Brian Armstrong will also be leaving the BDD. Brian is the maintenance superintendent, has had a long and illustrious career with the city and the BDD. He has decided it would be in his best interest at this time to retire. He may or may not want to say words to the board, but it's in his best interest that perhaps he retires. That too is going to be a difficult thing for the BDD to deal with. We've gotten so accustomed to Brian helping us from the smallest maintenance item all the way up to tearing down and building up a 900 horsepower motor. There's nothing that man can't do. He's a true hands-on working supervisor. His crew looks up to him and respects him, and we all do. And like Mackie, we all like Brian. He's easy to work with. He's a delight to work with, and he's always willing to help. So we're going to miss Brian as well. His last scheduled day is December 25th, I believe. I think that's because it's the end of the pay period. That may or may not work out, but he'll be leaving soon. I need to let the board know that I'm being as proactive on this too as I can be. I've been sort of beating the bushes behind the scenes on possible replacements or anybody that might be interested in applying for the job and accelerating filling the job. We have tried to post that position early. Mackie and I are working on making sure that happens, and hopefully within the next day or so. We're not sure exactly why it hasn't posted yet, but we're being proactive. Don't want a long-term void in filling Brian's position. But I want to thank Brian personally in this meeting and congratulate him on a long, successful, amazing career. And we will miss him as well. So Brian, I don't want to put you on the spot at all. I see that you're on the call, but if you would like to say any words, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you do, please feel free.
I'd like to say thank you to the board and to all of the city for everything that I've been able to accomplish. I wasn't able to get done what I wanted to do for BDD. When I came back, I had high hopes of getting everything straightened out down at the river where we had easy going instead of a rush every day just to keep everything running. I thank everybody and I appreciate all the help that I've been given, and I hope only the best for BDD.
Thank you, Brian. Commissioner Hamilton.
Brian, I know that you feel like you have less of a visible face to the board than maybe Mackie does, but your efforts and your expertise and what you do for BDD is no less appreciated. Just wanted to express tremendous thanks for what you've carried and for what you've contributed to BDD, and wish you all the best in retirement.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments?
No? Can you hear me?
Yes, JC?
I'm sorry I got blocked out earlier. I couldn't get through, but I do want to join everybody in expressing thanks to Mackie for all she's done. She's been just wonderful to work with, and I'm sorry to see her go, but God, I do wish her the very best. And I also want to say the same to Mr. Armstrong. I don't know him particularly well, but he's obviously been extremely important to the organization, and I'm very, very grateful and wish him the very best in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, JC. Anyone else? All right, well, Councilor Ives.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just echo that, yes, we do see Mackie, of course, at all the meetings, but we are certainly cognizant of the complexity of the BDD operation. And I think Rick's words probably were the best summary of the work that you've done for the organization, and the fact that you are there and have been a person clearly that folks have relied upon over the years when tough jobs need to get done, speaks tremendously to your work for the BDD. So certainly want to extend those same thanks to you, and how fun to be able to retire. Nice.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Well, I would like to join in the others, Mr. Armstrong, by wishing you well. And I would also like to say that, as Commissioner Hamilton said, you may not be the picture perfect up front in any meetings, but I sense and I know that you have the kind of job that when maybe something you didn't do or whatever went wrong, then everybody knows who you are. So the fact that we may not have crossed paths is a good thing in that regard, but that just speaks to your abilities and your accomplishments. And please don't go away thinking that the board doesn't appreciate your work, because I know even those who haven't spoken have a high regard for the work that you do. And it's important work. And I'm sure everything that you've done has kept us in good standing and kept our operations in running and in very good standing. So again, thank you for your service to the board, to the city, to Las Campanas and the like. And we just really appreciate you, and we wish you well, and we wish you a good future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I really don't feel like going back to you, Mr. Carpenter.
Madam
But
Chair,
I will.
I'll be back in a few moments, but have to step away.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm sorry for the bad news, but Madam Chair, I think that concludes my report to the board.
Okay, thank goodness. So next
Madam
item.
Chair?
Yes. Commissioner Hanson. You need to unmute.
I'm sorry, thank you. I just want to know when you will post the position for Mackie's position. You know, I think that it is a critical position for BDD, and what do you see as the future for posting and going through the hiring process?
What I think I can tell you, Commissioner, at this point, and Madam Chair, members of the board, we're going to move along as swiftly as we possibly can. I've already had some discussions with Mackie about getting all the paperwork prepared, job descriptions, interview questions, the request to post. All of that is in process. Whether or not I can actually post before her scheduled departure date, December 11th, I don't know, or if we could even get it done by then, but that is the goal, is to do it as rapidly as possible. And then I suppose we'll post for 30 days. We want to make sure that we get as many qualified applicants that might be interested as possible. And like I said earlier, I am already looking at people who may be interested and reaching out, and hopefully we'll get some qualified applicants that would be interested in applying and not having this. Maybe another way to say it would be, it is not my intention at all not to be aggressive about this. I will approach the Water Division Director, and if need be the PUD Director, and hopefully gain their support to be as aggressive as we need to be, so that the transition is as smooth as possible and the void is short as possible, so that we don't misstep anywhere along the way.
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate those comments, and also thank you, Mr. Armstrong, for all of your hard work on all the projects at BDD. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Rick? Okay, seeing none, I'll go to agenda item 7D, report on the first quarter financial position for fiscal year 2021. Mackie Romero.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this report is to update the BDD board and its partners on the first financial position as of September 30th, 2020. This report I bring every quarter. The first part of the report is our budget overview. As you can see from the second page of the report, our first quarter expenditures are a little over $2.2 million. There are several line items that are rather high in the first quarter, but as you noticed from Randy's report, we were producing a lot of water. So our electrical for the first quarter was really high, chemicals was really high, and then our solids was really high. So we will probably see those numbers start to dip in the second quarter. We are concerned with budget. Our budget is very thin this year, and so we will be monitoring those expenditures and bringing back any adjustments that we may have to make in the future. The report also typically includes the first quarter billing to the partners, but unfortunately I was unable to get that done prior to printing of the packet, so that was not included. But I will get the first quarter invoices out to the partners by the end of the week. So I'm actually working on that right now and almost done. The second part of the report is our other funds. We have the Major Repair and Replacement Fund and the Emergency Reserve Fund. The board has authorized $492,000 from the Major Repair and Replacement Fund. And as you can see from the budget overview, there were no expenses in the first quarter, just encumbrances. And so we should see, some invoices coming in the second quarter. I know the HVAC unit that the board had approved was recently installed and completed, so we should be getting that invoice in the second quarter. Are there any specific questions about our expenses in the first quarter from the board members?
Commissioner Hanson.
Thank you, Mackie. With your departure and with you working on the budget for the next year, I'm concerned that we have such a thin budget at the moment and that we're going to need to do possibly some bars since we have created a thin budget. So do you foresee that with this budget that you are presenting to the water division that you will increase those places where we have used more water than we expected and this more solid, the electricity and the chemicals?
So, Madam Chair, members of the board, like Rick mentioned, we did have these discussions with Jesse yesterday, and you are correct, I was concerned about electricity, and so I am going to have to do some shifting of expenses to put some money back in that particular category. We're also going to have some of our positions fully funded, and so there will be some adjustments that will need to be made in the budget, and we work through those.
And so since you are leaving, who is going to do that, or do you plan to get that done before you leave?
My intent is to get the budget complete as far as I can before I leave.
Oh, I'm extraordinarily grateful. Thank you for that.
Okay. Commissioner Hamilton.
Yeah, just a small thing, because I was thinking about, I mean, there's, as you pointed out, there's a relationship clearly between the expenditure of electricity, which was, and the amount of water pumped. And, July, there all the summer months, they're high demand months. But, I in thinking about it, think that demand is not just driven by a dry year, but like July was twice what the long-term average is from the operations report, right? So it just seems to me it must be partly driven by everybody being at home for COVID, right? Because there's less commercial use, but I think it's got to be tremendously intuitively outweighed and empirically outweighed by higher residential use, which gives me the sense that it's not going to come down that much. I mean, it's got to come down in the winter from the summer, but I bet it's got to be higher than average still. So I just think, keeping that in mind when we think about the probability of using this year to project next year's budget, for example, I just think we ought to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions for Mackie on this report? Okay, thank you, Mackie. That is your last report ever.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is item 8, and there are no consent agenda items, so we'll move to number 9, matters from the board. Do we have any matters that from the board that anyone wants to bring up? We're all pretty depressed right now, I think. All right. Well then, seeing none, our next meeting is going to be January 7th at 4 p.m. and we will adjourn after we make a motion to go into executive session. So I'll just take the liberty of moving that we go into executive session in accordance with the Open Meetings Act to discuss the Waters of the United States litigation entitled State of California et al. Versus Wheeler, case number 320-CV03005-RS. So that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Helms made the second. Karen, will you please call for the voice vote?
Yes. Counselor Worth, Romero Worth,
Yes.
Mr. Helms,
Yes.
Commissioner Hamilton,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanson,
Yes.
and Chair Vihel Coppler.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, we'll stand adjourned and, oh, Commissioner Hamilton, did you have?
Just, there's no reason for us, is there, Madam Chair, to come back after executive session?
No.
Thank
We
you.
will adjourn now, but if you can sign on to the executive session, the invitation was sent, I believe, twice, and most recently by Jamie Ray Diaz. So if you look in your email, you'll find it there. Okay. Well, thank you. Bye, Mackie. Bye, Mr. Armstrong, if you're still here. Okay.
Bye, Mackie.